Hello and welcome back to Putting It Into Perspective, your number one rated by me and Jamie golf simulator podcast on the internet. Of course, I'm Harrison.
I'm Jamie.
And today we're going to roll back the years. We're going to talk about golf simulators, where it all started, an introduction to kind of what they are for those people who are maybe interested in golf simulators but have never used one before, or don't really know much about them. I think it'd be good to get a little bit of a background of what everything is and where it all came from. So Jamie, seeing as you're an old git, how far back can you remember about golf simulators?
Yeah, everybody. I'm a little bit older than Harrison, if you hadn't noticed already. I remember a form of golf simulation going back to the days of the ZX Spectrum. It might even go back a little bit more than that, but, mid-80s.
Before my time.
People have played sports, on computers for such a long time. I mean, I suppose that's a form of golf simulation. People play all sorts of sports, and they like to play those sports in other ways when they can't play them in the real way. So, golf's no different, I guess, in terms of people actually being active, swinging a golf club in a golf simulator. I mean, really, in some form, I could be wrong, so feel free to comment if I am, but you could probably go back 30 years,
I remember I was at a TrackMan seminar. This was maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was the first one they hosted in the UK post-COVID. And they were talking about the whole history of TrackMan and the founders and all that sort of stuff. And I think the first TrackMan 1, the first prototype they had 5 of them. And it was like this ginormous box, which is like the size of this desk. Then they went to America, and they went to like Titleist, Callaway, Ping, TaylorMade, to all the club manufacturers and said, I've got a box that can track a golf ball. You need to see what it's about to, you can help use it for R&D for golf clubs.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing this was probably like 20 years ago, maybe. Probably around about 20 years ago. So that's like the first sort of, that's probably as far back as I know of. I think maybe FlightScope as well. Were they the first? Maybe they were using stuff quite, they were obviously radar like TrackMan, but they were quite early on as well.
I'd be amazed at how long, like launch monitors have been used, not really in mainstream, but as you say, for club testing, ball testing, learning new rules of, the physics of golf. But, you could, 2010, for example, people didn't really have these things in their house. They were big, they were expensive. I remember fitting out of the Nike 360 fitting cart, and there was a launch monitor in there, and it had a Nike 360 badge on it. It was actually a Foresight product, which then became a GC2, that everybody could use. So these devices have been used, in some capacity. And I think it's there's obviously been a demand created, or somebody's seen space in the market where you can merge maybe the gaming side of it with, the data side of it. And, over the last 12 years, I would say it's just gone boom.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how it goes from initially like that, people's thirst for knowledge to understand like how a golf ball flies, what keeps it in the air, what makes it curve, all this sort of stuff, to then being able to track the club and like impact data and figure out all that sort of stuff. And it goes from like that wanting to know all the physics side of stuff to then gaming and like having something in your home to enjoy and entertainment. Yeah. So it's like cars, isn't it? Like you see like hybrids starting in F1, and then 10 years later it drips into your Prius. So without a Prius, you haven't, without F1, you haven't got a Prius. So it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? It's all that testing and stuff, which happens how many years ago. And now I think, obviously, us working in the industry, you can see that it's not just like, there's now loads of suppliers of tech. You've got Skytrack, FlightScope, Unicore, TrackMan, Foresight, all these different brands who are doing that. But then you've also got loads of people like us who are selling it more as well. Yeah. Instead of just having like 1 or 2 retailers, there's loads of new people popping up in the market because the market's just growing. There's more demand for it.
Yeah. If you think how, if you go back 20 years even, people were still looking in for sale adverts in the newspaper for a car. They weren't Googling. So, the simulators all had to be promoted and sold pretty much directly from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
And I think obviously there's limited ways to be able to market that. So I suppose that's a great thing with how the internet has developed, to open that market up. And then obviously, you know, I mean, you could argue the market now is saturated, isn't it? I mean, there's so many options. There's so many people selling product, and it's not just the launch monitor product, it's all of the things that go with it. So mats, artificial grass, you know, I mean, that's developed massively, you know, in towards golf, from other sports. And that's probably only over the last 10 or 12 years. You know, so just the whole platform to bring the two sides of the technology side of how a golf ball or club can be measured, and merging that with, you know, the playability of software and bringing it into somebody's home. Yeah, it's just exploded, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's man. It's like, you know, that's kind of my second point is why are golf simulators like so popular now? And I think it's because, I mean, look outside today, it's snowing, it's freezing cold. In the UK, you know, it's going to be like this now. The courses will be underwater or frozen for the next few weeks. So you're not going to be able to actually play golf unless you play inside, and unless your golf club has a simulator, or you go to a pro that's got a simulator, or you go to a dedicated space like an indoor golf environment. So you've got the weather, which is a big factor. And then I think that's like commercially maybe, but then in terms of putting it in people's homes now, because of that the competitive nature of the market, it's driving prices down. So it's so much more affordable. So those first 5 units that Trackman had, they sold each one for like $100,000. Whereas now you can buy the same sort of tech and like a Mevo Plus radar for like 1,800 quid.
Yeah. I mean, they were, you know, an absolute luxury for the elite, weren't they? You know, I mean, even 20 years ago, they were $40,000 upwards. You know, that was a lot of money then. Now that you know, in one form or another, you can set something up in any space that you can swing a golf club really, really easily, whether it's even a basic golf net with a mat and a small device like a Garmin R10 or this. There's so many brands now. And I mean, it's what distinguishes one from another as well. You know, it's, I think there's only so many ways that you can measure, you know, technology, whether, not technology, but clubs or balls or, you know, golf tech. So how do you change these? How do you make them better? What do they offer? And a lot of the improvements now is more on the software side, I would say.
Yeah, I think so.
Comes to radar, you've used radar in one capacity or another for about 75 years. So radar's not a new technology, but it's a relatively new technology in its use and its purpose, you know, for golf.
Yeah, as well. I think it's like accessibility as well, in terms of the great thing I think about golf simulators is you can literally spend as much or as little as you want on it. Like if you want a super high-end premium build for like 40, 50 grand with Trackman, Foresight, whatever else it is, you can have that. And there's people out there who will supply it, they will build it. You can have a dream room. Or if your dream room is putting up an impact screen, knocking up a timber frame in your garage, putting an impact screen in there, a driving range mat, and a Garmin R10, and you're playing golf indoors for like £1,500, like that's the full spectrum. Like both the person who buys 50 grand's worth of gear and the guy who buys 1,500 quid's worth of gear are both playing golf indoors and both enjoying it. So it's like
the same thing.
They're both doing the same thing. They're still playing golf indoors, aren't they? But that's the beauty of it now.
It's the experience factor, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the experience, that's the difference. That's like playing, you know, at a local municipal golf club and paying £1,000 a round of golf, you know, to go to Turnberry. You know, you might look at that and say, God, I'd never pay £1,000 for a round of golf. But, you know, you might pay for the experience.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I think probably that's where a lot of the cost sort of is aimed at, really. It's just, you know, the overall experience, but it allows people to start at a very low end and they can add to. You don't have to go all in, you know, out from the beginning.
Yeah, we have people all the time who say like, you know, the main things of a golf simulator that you need is a launch monitor, a hitting screen or enclosure, something to hit into, a hitting mat and a projector, and then something to run the launch monitor off, iPad or PC. They're your main components. So if you then build a frame and put a screen in and you've got some turf and a mat, you can hit balls into that. If you then get like a Garmin R10, then you can then hit balls and you can measure stuff. But once you've kind of got everything built, you can always swap your Garmin out for the Garmin R50 or whatever. You can always upgrade the tech. You could start off with a cheaper projector, then you could go to a better projector, you could go to a better impact screen. You can always build this stuff up as you go. I think the hardest part is like finding the space and things. But once you've got that space, you can always add to it. Like they're almost like bolt-ons, aren't they? Like you can just kind of swap things out and
I mean, you can do whatever you want, can't you? I think the thing is as well is that with the growth of it is just the trends in golf, how people play golf as well. And you look at, sort of golf clubs and golf club memberships, 7-day members, how often do they get to play golf? Usually in the Saturday competition, once a week. So people question, value. And nobody wants to play bad golf. I know people who say, yeah, I just play for the enjoyment of it. Well, do you know what? After 18 holes with them when they've had their worst day and they've got half a set left, they didn't go out for the enjoyment. It's just
I don't enjoy playing bad golf. No, I cannot enjoy playing bad golf.
No, nobody does. But if you've got your membership at the golf club, you play once a week, you get to do nothing in between. You played well last week. You turn up expecting to play just as well you did last week. You haven't done anything in between. People are time poor as well. So, even now, people who used to spend a lot of time at the range might not get to spend a lot of time at the range. A lot of driving ranges have closed down. They're more spaced out, whereas they used to be quite close together. So, just having a facility that allows you to hit golf balls, whether the date is correct or not or whatever, as long as you're making more swings and hitting more shots in between Saturday and Saturday, the chances are that you will enjoy your golf more.
Yeah.
So, you could say that it's a bit of an add-on that's going to help you to enjoy your membership more as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot of people now, even like people that I coach, they buy a Garmin R10 literally to hit into a net in their garden or take down to the driving range and just to see some data. So, you can work on a little bit of stuff, work on the stuff that we work on in lessons, and then they can go away and they've got some sort of reference. It's not necessarily going to be bang on accurate as TrackMan is, but they've got some sort of reference point. And if the data's consistent and it's always spits out the same sort of stuff, then you can obviously reference it and use it to get better.
Absolutely.
But it's commonplace now, isn't it? Launch monitors, and I think it's pretty cool. And obviously, golf simulation is kind of here to stay. It's only going to get bigger, and it's only going to become more accessible as everything grows. It's like chatting to guys today who own a second-hand golf club company. It's like, think about golf clubs now. How easily you can just buy them second-hand and stuff. Yeah. The same sort of thing's probably going to happen. There'll be a larger second-hand market for golf simulator stuff. Absolutely. There already is. You can buy like TrackMans and Foresight gear pretty easily second-hand. All that side of it's going to grow as well, and it's just going to expand even bigger. I
suppose the good thing is with the simulator market is that there's more brands there now. They're all having to, keep that little piece, of the market to some degree, and prices are actually coming down, or you're getting more for your money. Golf clubs are getting more expensive. Yeah. I mean, I haven't paid for clubs for a long time, but recently now I don't get them for free. I've nearly died.
See the price for new driving now.
It's for nearly $2,000. I'm thinking, Jesus.
I know, yeah.
These will do for another year or so. But yeah, it is more accessible in cost. From £400 upwards, it's the cost of a driver. You can put a net in the garden, probably for less than £800, less than a set of irons, you can create your own place to just hit shots and get something back. Yeah. And I don't always think that, data, when you're working on improving your golf swing and fine-tuning things, and when you're fitting golf clubs, you want really good, accurate data. I suppose...
But even just knowing how far you hit it, knowing how far you hit your club is a skill in itself. For when you're on the golf course, obviously everyone has a GPS or rangefinder now to figure out how far away they are. How many people know what the dispersion is front to back?
Yeah.
How many people know how far they hit it or how far offline they hit it? You know, like that's a skill in itself. So even if you're just hitting balls and you get in raw carry numbers and things like that, but you know them all with your golf club, you're going to get better at golf, aren't you?
You are, and I think, you know, if you were to take that further into more of the coach aspect of it, if you, when you look at how you play golf, the first thing you do when you get to your golf ball is you try and find out how far you've got for your next shot, and whether you've got that from a rangefinder or a GPS or whatever. You try and take into account a bit of the wind or the conditions, but generally you gather information, and you gather that information to help you make a more positive decision. Which club? And if you're confident that you've picked the right club, you'll actually make a better golf swing. Nobody makes a good golf swing when they're second thoughts. You know, you see that all the time on tour.
Yeah.
You know, they make bad choices, they hit a bad shot. So key aspects when you're playing are, A, you want to hit your target. So direction or dispersion, and B, you want to hit it the right distance. So you don't have a third shot, or you don't have to hit that awkward pitch that you don't like, or, you know, you've got an earlier chance to make a putt on the green. But there's, you know, there's so many aspects of.
But those two things there,
golf.
like start line and distance, you can both practice that on any sort of launch monitor at home, can't you? You know?
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like, this stuff, it definitely does improve your golf. It does help you
take
along
10
the way.
shots off your round.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly, you know, just in knowing those things. I mean, that ages ago when SkyTrack was fairly new, there was, you know, a lot of comments on forums and things, you know, don't bother looking at the club head speed because it's not measured, so it won't be accurate, and this, that, and the other. And I thought, well, actually, you can still use it as a measure or a point, you know, to gain. If you want to work on getting more club speed, this thing says it's 75 miles an hour. Well, we don't really know actually how fast it is. But if you get it up to 80, then you've achieved 5.
You've got faster, haven't you?
You've got faster.
Yeah, so you've got that reference and that benchmark, haven't you?
So, yeah, I think how far you go with the data, especially at home, I actually think it could have an adverse effect on people if they have a lot of data that they don't understand how to use, or they, you know, I mean, probably one of the key things that a lot of people ask for now is, does it have angle of attack? I probably get shot say this, but, you know,
PGA, close your ears.
Yeah, so, you know, but people become obsessed with things like angle of attack, and angle of attack, used in the right way, is an important figure to show, you know, being able to compress a golf ball, if you want to make it easy. But it's how you get there. So if somebody's told they need to be in a negative number and they're at a plus number, when they go home and look at angle of attack, do they just start making golf swings in any way or shape they can just to see a change in that number? You know, without any coaching, people just end up then chopping it up and down, and they haven't actually fixed the swing. They've created a problem.
Yeah, and it's like, I thought as well, like even I think like the introduction of video now directly in launch monitors. Yeah. So you look at the overhead stuff like TrackMan IO, Unicore IXO2, Foresight Falcon,
Pro
and then
VX, the camera integration,
and then the stuff that sits next to it. So you got the R50 and the 2 Unicore units, the iMini Lite and the iMini. They've all got cameras, like impact cameras in them. Yeah. So I think it's a better. It's like, for me, it's easier to show people like contact with the ball on the ground, because you can see the mat ripple. Yeah. So you can see where someone's hit the mat, then the ball, or they've hit the ball, then the mat. So it's a lot easier to kind of see now on the camera-based stuff. Yeah. Which I think is massively moving forward. I think I think it kind of tells you almost everything you need to know when you've got TrackMan, who are probably like leading, let's say, you know, launch monitor company with their TrackMan 4, like probably one of the most recognisable devices. The fact that they are radar, and then they make a camera unit for indoors, it kind of tells you the way it's all, you know, going. Yeah. You know, obviously Foresight do that, Unicorn and everything, but I think indoors, you know, camera stuff, it's so much easier just to see. Like you use like the VX software or the Unicorn software, and you can frame by frame go through the club head hitting the ball, and you can see toe, you can see heel, like where it hits, you see the deflection of the club head. That's why it feels like it opens, close, whatever. I just think it's so cool.
Face impact's brilliant.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, being able to see face impact's amazing. And I just think, like you say, like it's all the software add-ons that are going to improve launch monitors. It's not like TaylorMade bring out a new driver every year or whatever. TaylorMade sponsorships are available, but like launch monitor companies,
and Under Armour.
They might bring out a new device like every 5 or 10 years, and in between that, the R&D into the software is just so heavy. So that's where I think you've got a lot of benefit. Whereas if you buy one of these things, it's not like you're going to have to update it next year with the next model, because you pay your software subscription and all that's just going on in the background, being
updated. Yeah.
So I think
on
it's
a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, and it's it's good. I think it's interesting.
I think for people at home, even just to have something which gives you carry. If you can have something with head data, face and path, so knowing your carry numbers, face and path being good is enough for most people to see the shot and become a more consistent golfer in the respect of, their full shots. I'm not talking about the distance control with wedges and things, but again, that's something else. But yeah, and having the video now in the camera systems of the impact, people don't need to necessarily know the degree that they're out by. Just
direction.
They can see it. And, they can see if the club's tilted back, if the shaft's back. They can see if it's forward. They can then feel the difference between what it's like to sort of slap at it, or compress it.
Yeah. You relate the feel to what it looks like then, don't you?
Yeah,
of course. Because a lot of people think...
The numbers of the fine-tuning.
Yeah, exactly.
Optimising.
Yeah, exactly. But... no, it's and that's just shows how far they come. You start the conversation talking about sort of games and all that, and Trackman 1 all the way to where it is now in all this sort of camera stuff. It's getting refined even more. It just kind of it bodes so well for the consumer that all this sort of stuff is just going to drip more and more into the mainstream, into the more affordable stuff for people. So it's something that we're going to talk about more in the future. All the tech and that. I think there's discussions to be had about the software as well. We'll leave that.
The thing is, when you've got all of this going on and all of this data, it just becomes, where do people even start? There's so much stuff. And then you've got forums and you've got social media groups and you've
got number one podcast.
And then you've got huge amounts of opinions. It's very, very difficult, I think, for somebody to wade through that and say, well, actually, what do I really need? What do I want to get out of it? And where do I start? Fortunately, for all of those people, you have people like myself and Harrison who will try and unmuddy the waters and help you get to that decision. So that you're starting with the right thing for how you want to use it and what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, like on a kind of side note to finish off for the second episode is, if you do have any questions that you want us to answer, obviously just comment below. You can send us an email, sales@golfbase.com, sales@inswinggolf.co.uk. Send us some questions, because we'll just use it as a topic on here because there'll be a lot of people out there might be thinking the same thing as you. They want information on how to build stuff, how to set things up. Let us know and we can discuss it. Two people been in the industry a long time, one a lot longer than the other, but we're here to help. So yeah, that's
absolutely. That's a great thing, because it helps us. It gives us some interesting content, but it also helps. And somebody will ask a question that probably 100 people want to ask and don't. So yeah, so get those questions fired either to myself or Harrison, and we'll definitely bring that into one of the episodes.
So yeah, fire them in, and we'll see you in the next episode.